Hello. Today is August 22nd, 2013, and we are in Bellingham, Massachusetts. This tape is part of the Bellingham Mendon Veterans Oral History Project. My name is Marjorie Turner Holman. Our cameraman is Eric Fisher of ABMI Cable 8 TV. We're privileged today to have with us Linda Calderiso. Welcome and thanks for coming.
Thank you, Marjorie.
All right, I have some questions for you, Linda. To begin with, what is your full name?
My full name is Linda Marie Calderiso.
And your maiden name?
My maiden name was Kavanaugh with a K and no U, and McEwen. I was formerly known as Linda McEwen as well.
That was your other married name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And when and where were you born?
I was born in Charlestown, Mass. in the 60s, in 1960.
1960?
1960.
Okay. And what you said that you lived in Mendon?
Mendon.
You
I
grew
grew
up-
up in Mendon.
Okay.
Yes, I grew up. We moved to Mendon when I was 12, so I grew up there and stayed there until we bought our first home in the 90s. Yeah.
Okay. And what did your parents do for work?
My dad was a shipping manager. He worked for a Hyde Sockney spot built, and my mom worked at a credit union. She was mostly a stay-at-home mom. She didn't work until much later in life, till we were all grown.
And you had siblings?
Yes, I do. I
You
do
still-
and did. Unfortunately, I lost my brother a couple of years ago. But yes, I have a sister, and I had two brothers, and I'm the oldest of four. The oldest of four.
It sounds like you lost both brothers?
No, I just lost the
Okay.
one brother. Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. All right. And I believe you said that your dad was in the service.
He was in the service. He was in the service, and that's probably one of the main reasons why I joined the service. Was to follow in his footsteps. He didn't make a career out of it, but I know it was a lot of the best years of his life. And it was funny, I always compare myself to be the son that he wished he had.
And what branch of the service was
Army.
He was in the
He
Army.
was Army, yes. He was
Okay.
active duty Army. And he spent his time over in Europe.
Okay.
In Europe,
In World War II.
in World War II.
Okay. And what were you doing before you entered the service?
Well, I was a secretary for an insurance company, and I enlisted on a whim. I actually always wanted to join the military. I wanted to join right out of high school. And I had an uncle who was a Green Beret who told me that there were only two types of women who joined the military, and I had better not be either one of those. So I listened to him for many years, and it was an impulse when I joined. I had taken the train home and walked past the recruiting station, and I'm convinced that if it was a Air Force or Navy recruiter, I probably would have joined that branch instead. But it was an Army recruiter, and I joined.
You had children.
I did. I had two young sons. They were 2 and 3 years old at the time. And I was in the middle of a divorce, and I wanted to do something too that would make them proud of me, and to teach them work ethic, and to do something much bigger than myself. And can't get anything much more bigger than yourself than joining the military.
And what year was this in, Linda?
That was in 1986. I always confuse the year, but I'm almost positive it's 1986.
Okay. So tell me about your enlisting. Tell me about that.
My enlisting. Okay, my enlisting. I can tell you, I had to do a lot of things before I got there. Before enlisting, once I left, I went into what's called the delayed entry program. So I had 3 months before I actually went to basic training. So I had time to prepare and get really nervous about my decision. Probably rethought it 1,000 times, but certainly not a decision that I that I ever regretted. I worked, like I said, I worked full-time, and I was a single mother for 2 children, so that was back in the day before internet banking or anything like that. So having to get all my ducks in a row with making sure daycare was paid and the rent was paid, and having things in place before I left. So
Right.
there was a lot of things to do before that, before actually leaving.
Wow. Well, there's I think you told us how, when, and why you enlisted, and I think we've got a picture of you in your with all of your boot camp people. So tell me about when you went into boot camp, and oh, there you are.
That's well after boot camp, but during boot camp, one of the requirements when you enter boot camp is you need to do a push-up, 1 men's military push-up. And growing up and going to gym class, we never did men's push-ups. We did the ones on the knees. And that was a requirement, and unfortunately, I could not do the 1 men's push-up. So what is required is, if you can't do that push-up, they send you to what's called the fat farm. So I was at the fat farm doing push-ups and more push-ups and more push-ups till I think it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks we needed to be there. How politically incorrect to call it the fat farm, but most of the people that were there were because they didn't make the weight requirement. It's, you have to follow guidelines, and my weight was not an issue. The issue was the fact that I couldn't do.
You just didn't have the endurance.
I didn't have the endurance to do one.
Oh,
the picture that you just saw was a picture of doing the Army physical fitness test, and after that I took great pride in making sure that I always completed my physical fitness test. As I never wanted to do the minimum, I was intent on doing the maximum.
So you never let yourself get that out of shape again?
Nope, never let that happen again. It's too easy to revert back, so it's always best to just keep in that shape.
Because I think we have another picture of you holding a medal.
Yes.
And what was that about?
That was about,
There it is.
yes, that was about, this was after what's called the Patriot Games. The unit that I belonged to had competition, and you had to score a certain score on your PT test, your physical training test, in order to participate. So that was a matter of pride to be able to participate in the Patriot Games, and to take first in my age group.
So it really changed your life.
It did. It definitely did.
Okay. Talk to me about a 9/11. How you felt about worrying with your family and all of that.
Well, 9/11 changed everybody's life, not just mine or my family's, but for the military part of it, I was actually promoted on September 8th. I was officially promoted
2001.
2001 to Master Sergeant. Let me rephrase that. I was promoted before, but I interviewed for the position that I was promoted into on September 8th. And at the time of the interview, nobody ever heard about what we did. It was we were referred to as attached to the unit, so we didn't actually physically drill with the rest of the unit. We were kind of like off to the side. And up until 9/11, our focus was on if any emergencies arose within the New England states. So if you think about before 2011, you never really heard of any...
Or 2001.
2001, sorry about that, yeah, correct. We would be responsible for any emergencies. You never hear in New England about any tornadoes or earthquakes, so there wasn't really
And this is
a lot.
beyond what the National Guard would do.
Correct. The difference between the National Guard and the Emergency Prepared Liaison Officers, we're all part of the United States Reserves. The Reserves is a federal, we belong to the federal government, whereas the National Guard belongs to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So that's a big, the benefit for our position is we didn't need to wait to orders. We could arrive to assist on our own detail of what our jobs were involved up to a certain amount of days or hours. So part of that function was being an emergency prepared liaison officer is terrorist attacks, and up until 9/11, that just was never heard from. So and I knew things were really of a high degree of importance because I was accepted into the position on September 8th. I was interviewed and accepted. And I happened to be on Fort Devens on 9/11 when the planes hit the World Trade Center. And I happened to have been going out on a run and there just to complete paperwork for the transition to my new position. And I knew when they were able to get me a security clearance within a half an hour, which is usually something that takes weeks and possibly months to achieve, and I had a security clearance and I was on my way to the Maynard bunker within a half an hour. So I definitely knew that, and it was very interesting first day of work to say the least, definitely to say the least.
So 9/11 was your first day on the job?
My first day on the job, yes. I remember having one of the colonels
that job.
on that job, yes, and one of the colonels asking me to send a fax and had to ask where the fax machine was. I remember literally not leaving my seat because my function at the time was answering the phone. And what a lot of people may not know about 9/11 is Region 2, which New York is part of, they didn't have any communication. So for the first 48 hours, any request for assistance or any communications came through our region. So we were handling all the requests for any military assets for the first 48 hours.
All the jets that were flying,
all
patrolling.
The jets. It was very interesting. One of the missions was they needed batteries. They needed actual batteries for their walkie-talkies. And it just happened to be that the colonel I was sitting with knew a pilot. We got through to the FAA and we were able to ship these batteries. And that was one of our missions. One of the missions that came across our desk, and what our position is as Department of Defense liaisons is cutting through to what is actually needed. I have an example where they wanted heavy lift helicopters as one of the assets that was requested for assistance and
in New York.
In New York. So if we didn't ask the why do you need these heavy lift helicopters, what would have happened is these heavy lift helicopters would have came in and spread the debris all over the place, but the person who was asking for that wouldn't have known that. That's why they have us, is we kind of sift through to see what's the best asset and the best way to assist. So
it sounds like you said don't send heavy lift helicopters.
Don't send heavy lift helicopters, exactly.
And what did they do instead?
I can't tell you exactly what it was, but that would be our function as emergency prepared liaison officers is in a lot of times, our emergency partners may not realize that if they want a plane, they want a military plane, that there's other ways. Civil air control can get the job done faster and quicker and for a lot less lot less of taxpayers' money. So that's what we do in this position. And it was in this position, we exercised emergencies. We planned for hurricane response, earthquake response, and before I got they would also do terrorist response as well. But so it was pretty interesting to not be exercising our position, but to be actually
So you
having
were
a piece of
finally
it.
putting it to work.
Putting it to work. I can't say I drew from experience because that was my first day on the job, and I didn't have any experience to draw from. So, yeah, you never forget the people that you met and worked with on that day when you sat side by side with them, and yeah, it was just interesting to think. And you say your family. My oldest son is in the Air Force.
Yes.
And he was in Turkey. And that day he happened to have a day off, and
Was he in the Air Force?
he was in the
then?
Air Force. Yes, he was in the Air Force, and he was in Turkey, and calling home, not knowing what was going to happen. So, you know, I think of my poor husband who, you know, doesn't know if he's going to be shipping, you know, one or both of us off.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a try. It was. You know, you just try to keep the normalcy of your life as things around you start to unfold.
You were talking to me about when your son was very little, and you were trying to stay in touch with them and the payphones and such. Tell me about that.
That would be my experience in basic training. The preparation. I talked about the preparation, but back in the day, during basic training days, you could use the phone every other day, and it was a payphone. So you sat in line for maybe about half an hour to place a phone call, and you hope that somebody picks up because answering machines were just making their way out. And Danny was 3 years old, and I remember.
This is your son?
This is my oldest son. Danny and Patrick were home, and I remember talking to Danny after waiting a half an hour for the phone, and he had to let me go because Mr. Rogers was on. So I remember, taking the back seat to Mr. Rogers at the time, and there was plenty of times that you'd wait for that phone call just to have that touch of home.
Because your kids were how old then?
They were 2 and 3.
Oh gosh.
When I went in.
Very young.
And Patrick was younger, and it was just so heartbreaking to not really understand what he was telling me at the time. And there wasn't a phone call that went by that I didn't get off that phone crying and homesick, and but gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, Mr. Rogers took front and center for Daniel, so for Danny.
Oh goodness. Well, tell me more about where you served and the details.
Aside from 9/11, after 9/11, our position was one in which the military. Another unique part about my position there is we worked together as what's referred to as they refer to it as the Purple Team, because it was comprised of Army, Coast Guard, which then ultimately ended up becoming part of the Department of Transportation, the Marines, Air Force, Navy, so we all collectively worked together. And up until 9/11, nobody really knew about us or what we did, but after that, our unit specifically, we went and worked for Hurricane Ivan and Jean in Atlanta. We worked alongside and supported FEMA Region 4 for their hurricane efforts. Anytime there's even a disaster now, or there's warnings, that you'll find a Department of Defense liaison located in the Emergency Operations Center for each region, and also in each state has their own Emergency Prepared Liaison Officer. So we did respond also to Hurricane Ivan and Jean why I was part of
Coordinating the disaster relief.
relief. Exactly. Exactly.
Is that a change from before 9/11, or is it?
No, we were always there, but nobody really knew about us. So that was kind of a change, and they also figured out what we could bring to the table. That was probably one of the biggest changes.
So other people have learned to ask for help that was there that they didn't even know to ask for?
Exactly. Didn't know it was there for them. And
Oh,
you know, we can't always honor the request, but we always are there to help them figure out the best way in which to work with them, because we're always in support of these emergency functions. We're never in charge of them. We're always there for support. So.
Good. All right. I think we have a picture of you on the there's some other pictures, and I'm not sure what we were gonna.
Oh, yeah, okay. This is in Georgia.
Yes.
FEMA Region 4, working the disaster for Hurricane Ivan and Jean. And that's the Emergency Prepared Liaison Officer, the principal, the gentleman with the glasses. And that's Major HD, another one of my coworkers, responding. We had 24-hour operations there, so we split our time accordingly. So.
But that's what it would look like.
Each region is different. An emergency center, sometimes it could be a really small room, and I responded in a different capacity. I now work with FEMA as a reservist. So I went to New York for Hurricane Sandy.
Oh, okay.
So I'm still involved in emergency management, but I'm just wearing a different hat now. I'm not in uniform.
Because you're retired.
I'm retired.
From the Army.
Yes, I've been retired from the Army for 3 years now.
Okay, but you couldn't let go of what you knew.
No, couldn't let go of what. No, I could not. And I'm glad I didn't. I'm definitely glad I didn't.
Okay, I think we also had a picture of you on the shooting range, and there you are.
Yeah, that's me. I know you can't really tell, probably not my best side, but yes. And that's the other part. I retired from the Army Reserves, and you know, the reserves, what people may not know is even though we're reservists, we still have full-time responsibilities. So we may not be there every day of the year, but our training is the same training that the regular Army receives. The leadership schools I've attended with full-time Army, and also with National Guardsmen as well. So we all taught the same information. It's just that and it's a little bit tougher to stay ahead of your skills when it's a part-time position.
Sure.
So.
Okay. You've received some medals. Can you tell me about them?
I received one of my other functions one of my other positions before I became an Emergency Prepared Liaison, as also another piece of history, is I was part of the Inspector General Corps. And within the military, the Inspector General Corps is like the IRS. Once they find out you're the IG, nobody wants to talk to you. But
this is still within the Army.
This is still within the Army. And as part of that position, I received an award for my work with sensing sessions and surveys that were brought about because of Tailhook and Abilene proving guides, sexual harassment. So our section was tasked with doing 100% of all the reserve units throughout New England, which entailed 10 out of the 12 summer weekends that we were tasked to go out and to perform these sensing sessions. With a sensing session is like a group interview session. It's kind of to see what the climate is of the unit, and some of the stories that I've heard are just pretty amazing that things like that happened, within the military.
With the harassment.
With the harassment.
You heard more stories.
And I received an award for that, and received recognition for on the PT committee, the physical training committee, because once I stayed heavily involved in that, and upon my retiring, I received the Meritorious Service Award as well. So.
Are there any other military experiences that you wanted to share?
I'd see. I just happened to be in the military during that time frame, but attending the Women's Memorial in Washington, D.C. was it was great to be part of another part of history. There we are. This is the candlelight vigil from the Lincoln Memorial. And to be part of that and to listen to the person all the way to the left is one of my mentors. That's Beth Lyle, and she was a WAC back in the day, and to hear the stories of how they paved the way for us is very interesting, because without them we may not be there. So a lot has changed since Beth, but it was really amazing to be part of something so huge and to be part of history. This is the Women's Memorial, which is different than the Korean Memorial out there. This particular memorial honors all the women in the military
across the military branches.
Across all the branches, and it's at the entrance of Arlington National Cemetery. So it was really a unique and interesting experience that I'm glad I got to participate in.
Yes, I think we have one more picture of you at the Women's Memorial.
Yep, that's at the right. You can see in the background there. That's the entrance to Arlington National Cemetery, and you can see.
Okay.
It's
a huge crowd there.
It is a huge crowd. It was.
And when was that?
Oh gosh.
You can.
Couldn't tell you.
Dear.
I have it written down there. It's kind of all a blur, but yeah, it was.
It's been a number of years.
It's been a number of years.
Okay.
Yes. It's a number of years.
You've made some important friendships being in the military and the camaraderie of the service. Tell me about that.
I have, and it's such a unique brotherhood, if you would, when you have a bunch of people
and sisterhood,
sharing the same, just the bond that you have because you've gone through certain things that other people wouldn't necessarily understand. And there's still a group of people that I still get together with, that I feel so close with, that we don't talk to each other very often, and we may not see each other very often, but I know they're there to be able to just pick up the phone, and it's very unique. On another note, I lost one of my good friends. It'll be 2 years. Who she deployed to Afghanistan, and she, through PTSD, she committed suicide, and it's nice when we all get together for happy occasions, and we do try really hard to make that happen. But through my former units, through my last as Emergency Prepared Liaison as well, it's doing our best to keep in touch with each other, and I think there's a picture of my friend Jeannie coming back from and it's from, I believe she was actually in Iraq. She was in Iraq, and how it's very interesting how things change. Jeannie and I have the same skills, the same military skills.
So she was a military liaison as well?
She is a military liaison. She was military liaison for the state of Vermont. I was part of the region, so they were kind of like under us, like the umbrella, all the information rises up. But and even though I didn't go overseas, as an Emergency Prepared Liaison Officer, depending on what year it is and what month and what the flavor is of the month, we were considered the the last line of defense. So we weren't touched for what's called cross-leveling. If a unit was going overseas and they needed somebody who had your skill, they could pick you out and you would move to another unit. And that's what happened with Jeannie. And Jeannie and I, again, had the same skill, and it just so happened that they changed their mind, and it very well could have been me that went to Iraq or Afghanistan, and instead of being here. And sometimes you have that guilt. You almost feel like you should have been there, but just knowing that you're doing the very best that you can to be the last line of defense, and to do your best because you are here, and making sure to support those of your comrades that were overseas. And I made sure to do that. I kept in touch with all my friends who did go overseas and send them care package in the comfort of home, and just and things of that nature. And I'm proud to say too is that my oldest son followed into the military footsteps. He's in active duty Air Force. He sometimes, depending if things aren't going well, blames me for the Air Force part because he wanted to join the Army, but I thought like a mother instead of a recruiter, and I wanted to make sure that the Air Force builds the rec centers before they get the plane. So I wanted to make sure that he was as comfortable as possible. So he's in the Air Force, and he's a newly promoted lieutenant.
Now, has he been deployed or no?
He has. He has been to Kuwait. And he actually just was promoted this past March, and he has 10 years of service in right now.
Because I thought we had a picture. Oh, here we are. Yes, there is a
We
picture of you with your son.
Yes.
There he is.
Yes.
Yes. With your different military uniforms.
Yes.
And
Yes.
gosh.
Yeah, that's a little while ago, but yeah.
But he's still in the service.
He's still in. Yes, he is still in. He's in Abilene, Texas. Texas right now. He's got 2 little boys and a wife and 2 little boys. So we'll see if they actually, I should have sent you that picture. That my daughter-in-law took a picture of the 2. They've just they're living on base now, which is different. They owned a home previously, and the boys when Reveille is played, retreat is played, the customs are to stop and salute the flag, and the boys were in the backyard and they heard retreat being called, and she got a picture of the 2 of them. So they snapped to attention, so it's nice. I'm wondering, who knows, maybe one of them will follow in their dad's footsteps. So,
tell me about your dad writing to you every day.
My dad wrote to me every single day of basic training. And we didn't get mail every day, but he wrote to me every day. So sometimes it would be a pile of letters, and so you would be in formation and the drill sergeant would call your name to come and get your correspondence, and you'd have to run, never walk. You always run to the head of formation, and they'd wait till I get back, and then they'd call me again, and then they'd wait and go. Yeah, so, and he'd always send care packages and goodies, and an Oreo never tasted so good when you haven't had one and you're not supposed to have one. It never tasted so good, but he did, and he wrote every day. Even while I was gone in basic training, my mother actually had open heart surgery, and he still wrote to me every single day, and because he knew the importance of just that, that.
Well, he has been there. Now he has died.
He has,
okay.
yes.
But he was there.
He was there.
He knew what it was like to wait for letters.
Yes, he was probably one of my biggest supporters. He made it to graduation, and there was a storm from boot camp graduation, and there was snow or something was happening with the planes. And again, this is before cell phones. And I was calling home, talked to somebody from home, and they said that he wasn't going to be able to get there. He was en route, and so I was telling my fellow friends that he's not going to make it, and he stood behind me and said, I couldn't miss my daughter, the only one marching in step. So he made it, and it just it It was very nice. And boot camp and joining the military is the best thing that I ever did, because it makes me appreciate everything that I have. To have everything taken away and then getting it back, I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't appreciate the opportunity to have done something bigger than myself. So I cherish that experience. Seems like such a lifetime ago, but I'll always cherish that experience.
Wow. You attended the Women's Memorial, but tell me about making your 9/11 hike every day. Tell me about that.
This is how we keep it alive. We found out, I think this is going to be our 4th or 5th year. We happen to fall upon it. The closest
This is your
Sunday.
husband and you?
My husband and I, and our group has grown. This year we'll be actually doing it. I think there was 21 of us that will be doing this. But what it is the closest Sunday to 9/11. There's what's called Flags on the 48, and there are 48 4,000-foot peaks in New Hampshire, and you sign up for a peak, and what you do is you raise the American flag from 12 to 2, and it's in honor of 9/11, so that we never forget. But this year's actually, we'll be flying the American flag, which is my retirement flag, which flew in Arlington National Cemetery at the Women's Memorial, and we'll also be flying the Massachusetts flag. And that's in honor of the Boston Marathon bombings as well. So it's just a place to
There you are.
remember. And that's also the Iraqi flag up there that my friend Jeannie sent to me when she was
That's
over
you
in
and your
Iraq.
husband?
Yep, that's my husband and I, and Tom, and we will be undertaking that journey in just a couple of short weeks. We'll be up there. Doing it again. So that was Mount Bond, that one there.
And you just spend a couple hours up there.
From 12 to 2 is how long we keep the flag up there. We spend more or less. My husband is the one, he schleps up all the parts of the poles to put them up, and loses sleep over making sure everything is all set beforehand, and does the logistics.
Who carries all of that?
Sometimes we divide it up. His tag name is Sherpa Tom, so he's great at organizing and organizing this event, and it's nice to be 9/11. I know I'll always hear from certain people who always call that we serve together, and it's kind of nice to be on the top of a mountain with no cell phone and no service, and just to reflect on how lucky we are, and to not forget the parts of history that make us who we are today.
Is there anything that you wanted to tell us that I haven't thought to ask about?
No, I think I've touched upon everything I think we were planning to talk about. Again, I thank you for this. I thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, well, thank you for your service, and thank you so much for sharing all these stories with us. And that wraps up this interview with Linda Calderiso of Bellingham, Massachusetts. And this all will go to the Library of Congress. So thank you so much. And thanks to the Bellingham ABMI Cable 8 for sponsoring this and providing all of the resources to help make it happen.
And thank you for all your time and effort that you put into this, Marjorie, too.
You're
Very
welcome.
much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.